everyone to know that I've found my true soulmate. I am leaving you.
Well done, darling. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
My name is David Morrison. 3 years ago, my life imploded on what should have been the proudest night of my career. I was the regional director for a luxury hotel chain overseeing properties from Maine to Georgia. I had it all: the corner office with harbor views, the tailored suits, the entire corporate dream. My wife, Victoria, was the picture of perfection, poised, polished, and admired by everyone. And her son, Ethan, from her first marriage, had become like my own. I was the one who taught him to ride a bike, paid for his braces, and sat through every parent-teacher conference. He never called me Dad, but he didn't have to. I was there for him always. The night everything changed was a celebration dinner for a deal I had spent 18 long months building. 20 of our top executives, investors, and partners were gathered at our flagship hotel. Crystal glasses, crisp white tablecloths, meticulously arranged centerpieces. It was the perfect evening. Until she stood up. Victoria, wearing the emerald green dress I bought her for the occasion, flashed that glossy, practiced smile of hers and announced she had something deeply personal to share. The whole room leaned in, expecting a heartfelt toast to my success. Instead, she declared that she'd been on a journey toward authenticity, had outgrown our marriage, and had finally found someone who truly saw her. His name, she said, was Derek. A profound silence swallowed the room. I swear you could hear a fork hit a plate from across the table. I didn't speak. I didn't shout or cause a scene. I simply set my champagne glass down, placed my credit card on the table to cover the entire bill, tipped the staff generously, stood up, and walked out of the room, out of the hotel, and out of that life. She had just detonated our marriage in front of my entire professional network. But what she didn't know was that I had been preparing for this exact moment long before she ever opened her mouth. You see, people who are capable of that level of betrayal always leave breadcrumbs. And over the past few months, I had picked up every single one. A storage unit I'd rented under an alias waited for me like a bunker. Inside was my escape plan: clothes, cash, a beat-up but reliable old truck, and a set of encrypted files containing everything I needed. I had quietly prepared all of this as the signs of her affair became impossible to ignore. By dawn, I was gone. I checked into a cheap motel under a different name, hundreds of miles away. My first and only call was to my lawyer, Michael. I told him to file everything we had planned. He did, and just like that, Victoria's world began to crumble. First, the prenup she'd laughed at when we signed it came into play. There was a clause, one she'd completely forgotten, that clearly stated if infidelity was ever confirmed, all shared assets would immediately revert to me. Our joint bank accounts froze. Her credit cards were declined. Her access to our financial life was completely blocked. Then came the issue of her visa. Victoria had never bothered to become a U.S. citizen. She was here on a spousal visa. Our divorce filing terminated its basis. It was only a matter of time before immigration authorities would take notice. While all this was happening behind the scenes, she was online, posting curated videos about her bravery, claiming she was choosing honesty and living her truth. But the public wasn't buying it. People who had been at that dinner, who witnessed her humiliating announcement, flooded her comments. They called her selfish, cruel, and delusional for framing her betrayal as some kind of personal growth. The wellness and lifestyle brands she collaborated with started to quietly cut their ties. Her carefully constructed influencer persona crumbled. Her followers vanished. About a week later, reality hit. She tried to access money, but the accounts were locked. She called my corporate office, only to be redirected to the legal department. She even tried filing a wellness check on me, but the police quickly dismissed it. She was losing money, losing face, and losing her stability fast. And then came the final, unavoidable blow. Immigration authorities issued her a formal notice. She had 60 days to leave the country unless she could find a lawful alternative. The mask finally slipped. She posted a tearful video, no makeup, no filters, no calming background music, just pure, unfiltered panic. She said she didn't anticipate the consequences, that she regretted everything, and begged me to talk to her. I didn't respond, but then someone else reached out. It was Ethan. He didn't use her phone. He found me through an old gaming account I'd forgotten we even shared. Smart kid. He just wanted to know if I was okay. He told me that Derek had already moved in and that he hated him. In that moment, I made a promise to myself to secure Ethan's future. I set up a trust for his education, structured so that Victoria could never touch a single penny. His mother might have blown up our lives, but he didn't deserve to suffer the fallout. Weeks turned into months. Victoria realized she had no money, no legal status, no access to me, and no audience left to manipulate. Her entire life had collapsed. Piece by piece, consequence by consequence. 11 months later, after fighting it tooth and nail, Victoria was deported. The law, it turned out, didn't bend for wellness buzzwords or manufactured vulnerability. Ethan went to live with his biological father in Colorado. We stayed in touch privately, messages, calls, little updates on his life. I made sure he knew, over and over, that none of this was his fault. Meanwhile, I began to rebuild my own life brick by brick. I bought a small cabin in New Hampshire under a new legal name. I learned woodworking. My mornings were no longer about answering frantic corporate emails, but about shaping driftwood I found on the shore. I sold the hotel portfolio quietly and started living a simple, intentional, and peaceful life. Then one morning, as I was sculpting by the water, I heard footsteps on the gravel path. I turned, and there she was, Victoria. She was pale, thinner, and stripped of all the vanity and glamour that had once defined her. She said she'd found me through a small magazine feature on my artwork. She wanted a conversation, an explanation, a chance at forgiveness. I gave her none of it. "I don't care," I told her, looking her straight in the eye. It wasn't said out of cruelty, but because it was the simple truth. The wound was gone. She held no power over me anymore. And in that moment, she finally realized that my indifference and not my anger was her true and lasting consequence. She started to cry. She asked if I ever thought about us, if I hated her. "No," I said, turning back to my work. I moved on, and I truly meant it. She walked away slowly, as if waiting for me to call out, to show some flicker of the man she once knew, but I just returned to my sculpture. My life no longer revolved around her choices or her drama. 8 months later, Ethan turned 18 and came to visit me at the cabin. We shared meals, we created art together, and we talked about his plans for school and life. He thanked me for the trust fund, the one thing his mother could never touch. A year after that, I got word that Victoria had remarried in Canada. She signed documents formally giving up any and all claims to anything tied to me. In return, I gave up pursuing the debts she owed. And just like that, the chapter was finally, completely closed. My life found a new rhythm. I had my workshop, a small community of friends and students who came to learn craftsmanship from me. A woman named Grace entered my life, someone steady, warm, and honest. Ethan graduated from college with honors. He visits me twice a year now. We fish, we sculpt, and we talk like equals. One evening, as we sat by the fire, he asked if I ever regretted leaving everything behind that night. "No," I told him. "I regret what you had to go through. But leaving saved my life." He just nodded, with an understanding that went far beyond his years. Later that night, as I stood outside under a sky full of stars, I realized something profound. Revenge was never about destroying her. True revenge was rebuilding myself into someone stronger, someone more whole. And by choosing myself, not my anger, I had finally won. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow for more.